All right, it's 9 o'clock. Let's get started. And I know Shannon's giving us copies of the roll-up.
Cheap file for.
Great. So I think we're just gonna look at the latest numbers after she's put everything together. So we can put our copies here in a minute. I wonder if these have changed. Maybe
I don't know.
I'll have to ask her.
She has new ones.
I know,
Until she
okay,
comes back.
wait until she comes back.
Yeah, I figured, Susie, that the comments all last night would be, well, she only scored 25 points.
Yeah, but she had 11
She had a
assists.
long game. She only scored 25 points, but she had 432 assists.
You guys are quiet. We are not in church today.
Oh, okay. That works.
Are we on Zoom?
Yeah, we're on Zoom. We have one person, I don't know, to tender cancer,
Who is it?
There it is.
number 7826.
Still doesn't tell me what we bought.
It's on the back.
Oh,
It's
fast.
mostly ice melt.
Yeah. I wish I had a $57 water bill.
You keep going on.
We got the Darcy. Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah. Pass it around.
Okay, how do you want to do this? You want to just start at the beginning of the slide? Can you give us the roll-up numbers first? What our latest fund balances are?
Oh, the fund balances, yes. There's general basic fund. Rural basic. All supplemental. I think it's.
Did you?
Okay, do you have a general basic?
There.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, so it's strong. Rural basic. Almost supplemental. Okay, where do you want to start? General, basic?
So, yeah, if you put the general basic, the rural basic and the debt service all at the maximum, you'll be almost 20 cents less for the rural fund, for the rural taxpayers, and 17 cents less for the urban on those three funds. But then the supplemental, you'll want to increase.
Okay. So where is
So,
that?
so
on
really
here?
the supplemental is the one that I would focus on. That's the landscape
Right.
one.
Okay. So what this would be is going from 393 to 382, which we had previously, right? In the general basic.
Yeah, that's your new maximum.
And then in the rural basic,
it would be going from 154 to 151. That's your new maximum for that.
Okay. And the new maximum is based on the state formula with the changes in the property tax
Yeah.
law. Okay, so general supplemental.
So the first, the main column is if you don't change anything about your levy from last year, you leave it at the 221, you would be going negative $658,000. Then the first column is if you just take it to zero, that would be increasing your levy by 63 cents. But I don't think you want to project a zero ending fund balance. So the next column would be if you increase it by the amount that the ambulance has cost over the 2 years, when you take out their revenues. That's if we get the revenues that they're projecting. You would end up with a 10% ending fund balance with 89-cent levy. The next column would be with a $1 increase to your levy, ending with 13.9% ending fund balance. And then the last column is what you would have to do to get a 25% ending fund balance, and that would be an increase of $1.30 per thousand.
Well, I want to go back on these negative numbers. So the estimated negative balance, 658,000 has changed. Does that include the liability and equipment and property insurance increase?
It includes the ICAP increase. It does not include, they're projecting a decrease for the workman's comp. And I'm still working on getting some more clarification on that.
I saw her yesterday at the state supervisor
Okay.
meeting, and she said we've done really well the last 10 years. She sent the numbers to Joe. So
So
they should have one.
that mod is even better than what she said is possible.
I know, she
Because in
said,
that other email, she said the lowest possible would be 0.65. And this is 0.64.
yeah, no, she said,
That's right. Okay.
she didn't give
that's
me a
great.
number, but she said it's really looking good for
Okay,
us.
so that still, it doesn't include that decrease. So that will save you a little bit.
How
I
much
just
is the
was-
projected decrease?
So they're saying that it's 61,961 this year, and their projection for next year is 38,682. That does not include the ambulance.
And that was, that added 11,000 or so, right?
Mhm.
So you'd have to take 100,000 off of that.
Added to it. Because they did,
Oh, added,
the
okay.
38 is just what we've had.
Right.
And then.
So it'd be 49,000 for
Yeah.
next year.
They also had suggested breaking it down by department, so I think they're working on getting that for us too. And then Scott and Darcy are at the EDS IGHCP meeting today, so hopefully we'll be able to get some updated numbers on that so that we can figure out if we have enough fund balance to leave that 13,030 per employee the same for next year, or if we need to raise it a little bit. The last fund balances that I had seen were good, so we may be able to go another year with it still at that rate.
Well, we decreased that a little bit, right? Our match,
we-
or our, what we
We didn't
subsidized.
decrease it,
Okay,
we just left it the same.
So the projected 900,000 in revenue from the ambulance goes into general basic.
Yeah, and these numbers are with that in there still.
So I want to make sure I understand. So the ending fund balance of general basic is reflective of the $900,000 in revenue.
Yes. But we can't raise that rate.
right.
Right.
We can start looking into the EMS levy, which I think you guys are really gonna need to do. Because we just can't afford a new program on the levy rates that we had with the old programs. We're basically paying for a whole new program with fund balance for these 2 years, and we won't be able to continue doing that.
We'll still be getting the pass through from the hospital. It's sure.
And Abby had looked into the dates that you would need to start
Good.
your filings for that EMS levy.
So that absolute last day that you can let me know is September 6th.
Okay.
Or, no, that's the day that it has to be published, so you have to let me know before September
So get
6th.
it on in November.
Yes,
And I think there's quite a process to get that going. I think you have to form a committee, and I think there's a lot of legwork that would have to be done before you could implement that.
Well, we should probably put that on our agenda for, Monday. We're gonna have a meeting on 27th.
or the 20th.
We weren't going to the week of the 19th. Or we can next week. In the week. Well, if we address that in March, we'll be okay, won't we? We just need to review the guidelines. I know we went through them a while back.
Hasn't there been some work done?
Yeah, you already
Some
declared it an
Essential
essential
service.
service,
Essential
yes.
service. So I don't think, I mean, the big hurdle's done. We just need to get it out, the code out, and look at it. And
Chapter 422D.
I actually have it printed out here. You can make copies. You too.
good for you.
Weird.
I mean, I've had this note probably a good 6 months now,
Yeah.
figured out.
Kind of knew it was coming.
Why don't you just put copies of that in our packet?
On Monday,
Yeah, we won't discuss it, it's not on the agenda, but we can just have it, and so we each have a copy. Or else just stick them in our mailboxes. All right. So general basic, we're pretty set on that as far as the code goes. We don't have much wiggle room there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know yesterday they were talking about that, you know, where it is to stick to those guidelines that were given. So. Okay, real basic then. We're still where we need to be there according to the meeting.
Yeah, we've been using I just talked to Melissa this morning because she prepares the report for the road use tax funds. And, there's been some talk about because this has been reduced, some of the counties are afraid that we're not gonna be able to make our transfer.
Yeah, hang on, they talked about that yesterday, I don't know. So I was gonna ask you about that. There's been some potential changes in that.
So I've got a question while she's looking that up, Shannon. Since the ambulance operates in both the cities and the rural. Is there any portion of that rural basic that can go towards the operation of the ambulance?
Not that I'm aware of, just because to go in the rural fund, it would have to be benefiting primarily the rural taxpayers, and because it is serving the cities too, I don't think that would be appropriate use of it.
Can we get an opinion from someone on that? Because,
Seems like we should use some of it, a little bit anyway.
well, I would think so
If
too.
you, it may be different if you were getting reimbursement from the cities, you know, if you, like we do for the sheriff, where the cities, the small cities, pay for part of the expense of it.
Right.
But without them paying for part of it, then I don't think you can use that fund.
Okay, I found my notes on, and again, those are notes, so they're not like official. What was talked about was, basically, it looks like the system currently may punish us for using lost for the road fund. That'll reduce the road fund, so that needs to be addressed. You know, because we already used the lost funds. For road.
Why would it punish us for that?
I don't know, I started to follow up on it, there was quite a discussion on it. So we might not get the full allocation.
See,
of villages
at this
taxes.
point in time, and I think that our attorney's office needs to be on this. I don't think that the legislature can dictate what the voters in a local option sales tax referendum have determined they want to use for. And
And
if we're just gonna sit here and let this happen and not fight back, you know, it's like I told Senator Dickey, that what part of local don't you understand? It's local option sales tax. It's been a voter approved referendum. And I do not believe that they have the legal right to set up there and say, you can't use it for that. You know, they got into trouble a few years ago when they tried to co-opt some of it for the 3/8 of a cent for that amendment for conservation. Or I'm sorry, I'm off on that, for water quality issues. And the fact is that it was voter approved uses. And, you know, but if we're gonna sit here, and I don't mean just us, but I mean if the supervisors, and you're on the executive committee, if we're just gonna sit here and let them walk over us,
they are, actually, a county day at the Capitol is gonna be on.
I think that-
Unfunded mandates.
well, that's fine, but I think that the ISAC's, executive committee needs to look into hiring an attorney and fighting this. I mean, what is the point of having, I just go back to what you talked about, or we talked about an emergency services levy. So they can come along if we're going to allow them to set the precedent to co-opt the local option sales tax, they can co-opt this other thing as well. They did it with the silo tax.
Well, first we need to find out more about it, but yeah.
Now, obviously, 80% of our sales tax goes to property tax relief, and, you know, they'd be fine with that. But 20% goes to bridges and culverts.
Yep.
Which doesn't fix a lot of bridges, but it, you know, we can buy a lot of metal culverts and stuff with the roughly the 150,000 that we get. But this was voter approved.
Yep.
And I think they need to stay the hell out of it, and I think we need to push back.
Okay, so rural basic fund. We okay with that one?
Well, I mean, I'd still like to know whether or not we can apply some of that ending fund balance for ambulance costs, but that's something we just will have to look into. But we can't go up or down, well, we can go down, but we can't change the rural basic levy any more than we change the general basic levy, right? So it is what it is.
Well, you can lower it, but this is
Right.
the maximum, and I wouldn't want to lower it if I were you.
No, I'm
Not
not,
in the current environment.
Right. and that's a valid point that you make too. How long are we gonna be able to transfer this money.
Right. Once the bonds are paid off, you'll have to go back to paying for it fully out of the transfers from the rural fund. So you'll need that balance. Especially if we can't, I mean, if we can't raise that rate, which we won't be able to unless they change the law, then once those bonds are paid off, I don't know how we're gonna fund our 75%.
Right,
Well, and that directly, the amount that we transfer directly impacts funding on other levels for roads, doesn't it?
Yeah, the road use tax.
Yeah.
If we don't transfer at least 75% of the maximum, then we don't get the full road use tax
Yeah.
money.
So it's a double whammy.
It is.
good. Right, so we're back at supplemental. Which one's your recommendation, if you have one?
I would recommend at least the dollar. And these are just examples so that you have an idea of where each of those amounts would put us. We can do any amount with, any amount from the 63 cents on. There's no limit on the supplemental fund. The only limit is that you can only use it for certain expenses.
Right,
And that was, so my question in that regard, is there anything that we're currently using funds out of general basic for that we can pay for out of general supplemental?
No. We've moved everything over to supplemental that we can years ago.
And so our IPERS and all that comes out of general supplemental,
Yeah,
social security, does that come out of there?
yes, all of the employee benefits. FICA, IPERS, insurance. The ICAP insurances.
And I figured, what did it, 15% increase for all of those lines and adjusted accordingly, so that's reflected in there, and I think Bart put in more than 15%, if I remember correctly.
It's 3 years in a row, so a
Yeah.
lot bigger than that.
Yeah, I did
oh, you're in.
I've missed it 3 years in a row and had to adjust in the budget somewhere else.
I mean, I did a comparison, and in years past, it's been a couple of percent, 4%, -%, and then the last 3 years, 2 years in a row, and then 40%.
Yeah.
Which that 40% includes adding an ambulance service, so it's not really a 40% increase
Yeah, but
because you added something, but
that didn't affect us that much,
right.
not as much as we thought it would.
Not 40%.
No.
It was like, what, $10,000 maybe?
Because you had paid for ambulances out of last fiscal, or the building out of last fiscal year, so the ambulances added like 12,000.
So everything is in there that can be, and it's mostly those insurance and benefit expenses.
And supplemental.
Okay.
So, just so I'm clear on this. And what? It's something to worry about. So the 10% was 63 cents?
The 10% is 90 cents, 89. Up at the very top, there's the
Oh,
second line is the
Right.
additional levy.
okay. So 62 or 63 cents was the zero. Okay.
The difference between those, Lee, it was 107,000.
Right, no, I can see that.
Well, we don't know what our cost yet is gonna be till after today, right?
Right.
On the health insurance. for
Yeah.
Sure,
And you don't have to set these rates today. This is just something that you
okay,
can be looking at.
so either one of these. All right. So where do you wanna go next, the roll up of all these?
Do what?
It's up to you.
I'm gonna go through all these, see if we need to, what it looks like after she put everything in we talked about the other day.
Well, this is just current activity, right?
Right. Where's the? Oh, what we talked about, the ambulance budget.
They're 36.
Well, because it's right here on the top, that's why I asked.
Well, that was the ARPA
Contribution
money.
to the
Yeah,
insurance
which,
Um,
that was the ARPA money, which I'm not
Okay.
using this year.
Let's not jump around, let's just
Okay.
go through it, otherwise we'll be confused. And then. Emergency management shows up on ours, but that's the commission.
Yeah, I don't have final numbers on that yet. That's,
Did you have a meeting on that this week, Susie?
Not this week, next week. I think it's next time.
they had put in the same amount as last year, but then I think there's been some talk about reducing that a little bit to help your general supplemental fund. Your general supplemental levy, I guess I should say.
So under solid waste disposal,
What page are you on? Oh, I see it. He's on page 2.
it
Susie.
says define or 2425. We don't have salary in that anymore. We don't have FICA in that anymore. We don't have diapers in that anymore. We don't have insurance in that anymore.
Isn't that the pass-through for Simco?
Yeah, it is.
That's a what?
Simco pass-through?
Oh, my
Those
bad.
sleeps
Okay,
wages.
sorry, I was looking at.
And I haven't heard anything on that yet either. Have they had their meeting yet?
Next
Susie?
week, next
Okay.
Wednesday.
I know he
Wednesday,
was
yeah,
thinking
no.
that there would be no increase, but I don't think it's
I will-
been set yet.
No,
All right. Let's go on to page 3. We should probably put that there. Oh, this is pretty standard. Okay, so we reduced general county management by what? 40,000? Other policy administration.
page you
and
on?
Page 4. That effect,
And if you look at it.
other policy administration. Oh, that was for someone's audit, right? The required audit,
Yeah, this year, because of the ARPA money, we'll have to have the,
extra.
yeah.
Right,
So we have to bid that out.
If you stay with the same company that you've been using, you don't have to do RFPs. We did get, a proposal from them a few years ago and you approved 3 years. This would be the last year of their contract that you approved. So if you want to stay with them again after this, then you wouldn't have to do RFPs, but otherwise you would need to send those out.
D on page 4,
Yeah.
next to the bottom. Where we budgeted 94,000 for next year, we've only spent 19,943, right?
In the building.
Why are we putting that much in that?
That's traditionally what we've done, because we never know what'll happen with this building, but we could cut that if we need to. I don't know what'll come. I mean, we've got that door going on upstairs now we have to deal with.
Yeah, I suppose we never will know what's going on specifically until after it's done.
Well, that's probably a little lower this year because we had the bathroom project, which some of those expenses we would have normally had in our building, but we didn't this year because of the bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at, if we go back, we spent 33,000
Mhm.
round figures, 22, 21, 22. 61,000 and 22, 23, and we're on track to spend
40.
about 40,000 for this year. So
I just think that 94,000 is a lot.
Yep,
I think we can take 20,000 out of that.
I was
think
gonna
so,
say how
too.
about 60. I mean, just goes to 60,000.
Well, the only issue I have is that the only concern I have is that if we do have a problem and we've got an extra building now that we've got to maintain.
We also have a roof over at DHS that
Right.
needs attention. Dave's gonna try to fix it, but we might have to. And that's 2 roof issues in the last several months in that building, so who knows what will happen with that. Okay, you wanna decrease it, put a 74,000?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. So the CARES project, the 332,000 is the amount we have yet to spend out of that. Is that correct? We don't know if we're going to spend that.
I still stand by that you don't need to budget that at all.
And I totally agree with that.
mhm,
It's just general basic money. There's
Right.
really,
That's
that's
absolutely correct.
fine. Cause we can access it if we need to, right?
yeah, it's just.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I'm asking a question. So if something comes along, say for example, when we purchased that copier and that computer the other day, we were gonna have it taken out of that line item. So if that line item doesn't exist, how do we appropriate?
Well, really, you shouldn't take anything out of that line item anyway. It should just come out of the line item that's appropriate for that expense. You could code it with a project number to tie it back to those funds, but you don't really have to because it's really just general basic fund money.
Okay, and I apologize for not understanding all of this, but if I take and move $122,000, I get it, it's in the general fund, it's there. But where is it
Right.
in the budget? What line item or where do I code it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have some project coming up, then you should put it under that line item, but really, this isn't the way to do it really, but.
Yeah.
But you can if you want to.
Are you saying that should go back to the journal and any line item, we should already have something rather than 3 different funds for building or something?
Yeah,
I totally understand.
I just don't think it's necessary to list it separately on here,
Yeah.
but
But if we need it, we can spend it
Yeah.
if something comes up.
well, if you would have to do a budget amendment if you don't
Right.
budget for it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't use that line personally, but.
Yeah, because it can cause trouble. It has in the past.
Yes,
So do we want to keep,
because it makes
Doing
it
that?
look like it's something that you have to spend for certain things when
That's correct.
you don't.
that's
No.
correct.
Okay. So you wanna take that out then? What do you think, Liv? Where does it show? Or we just know it's a project number? Cause I know early on when we got it, we set it up as a project.
You have to put the money into a line.
Yeah, you would have to pick a line that is appropriate for whatever you're spending the money on, and that's where you would show it. It's really just, there's no separate money. It's just part of our general basic fund.
So what is miscellaneous, the line above that?
That is where we've been paying the $5,000 for,
Oh, the school,
yeah, Cardinal's resource officer.
Can you move it up to that line item?
I
That would
I
be
really don't
deceiving.
like
yeah. I
spending
don't,
anything out of miscellaneous.
I don't even like the
you sh-
miscellaneous.
Yeah,
Well,
you really
okay.
shouldn't.
Cause that
I'm just simply,
looks,
my point is that this, yes, I understand that it's in the general fund. But if you're trying to find a line item, now, for example, now I'll just give you hypotheticals, or, okay? At one point, we talked about using some of that money to do a railroad crossing. We used some of that money to buy a copier and a computer. All right, so what I'm asking is that certainly that qualifies as miscellaneous. I mean, or you,
true.
in other words, I don't know how you define it, but if you just said, now, if it's not in here, now we gotta jump through all these extra hoops for some unexpected expense that may come up. For example, maybe for whatever reason, having hopes that we don't, we blow through that $74,000 for buildings. Well, now we gotta go do a budget amendment because we've gotta go find, and I'm just simply saying is, I don't disagree with, okay, you don't wanna label it that, and I get that. But I just think that if you don't have it in here, so that you can point to it and say, okay, I wanna buy the red Solo cups and I wanna buy them out of this fund.
I think you bought too many of those.
Well, that's probably
Okay.
true, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of,
Lee, are you saying the money for the copier and the printer should have been, that so much should have been transferred to the rest thing or sanitary?
well,
sanitation?
I'm saying that environmental health, we didn't take it out of environmental health's budget, we took it out of our budget,
Mhm.
and that's fine. But what I'm hearing Shannon say, and if I'm not understanding.
You can leave the budget there, but when you actually spend the money, you should code it to what it actually is, because otherwise
So-
it's not clear what
So
you're spending
using
the
that,
money
the
on.
copier and the printer for the environmental health, we should have transferred X amount of money to that. Is that
Well,
what you're
not
saying?
transferred, but expended it out of.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we would have to
Or
transfer
out of,
some in to be
or
able
out
to
of,
spend it out, is that right?
out of an office
No, you can
supplies
leave
line item.
you can leave the budget there as long as you spend the money out of the appropriate
So
line.
when we spend it, we code it appropriately.
Yeah.
So how should we do this to be absolutely clear?
I mean, really, you should be coding it to what
Yeah.
it
Okay.
is in the budget, but like Lee's saying, if there's something unexpected that comes up, he wants to have a little bit in there. for
Well, and
Well,
that's
if I,
what
if I
that's
buy a
for.
computer, does that come under information technology?
Yeah, it depends on how much it costs.
Yeah, because there's no money in that line item. That's my point. I don't want to spread it all over everywhere. I just,
But see
wanna have
how
a
this
pocket
year
here.
you've spent 19,000 out of there, even though there's no budget, because you don't budget you don't have to spend out of the line that it's budgeted in, as long
Right.
as you don't go over by service area or department.
and service area is,
So that third set of numbers, on that page 5 that you're on, see where it's 9,100.
yeah,
So as long as the 9s in total, you don't go over. see,
Okay.
There's a total.
so there's,
here. So if you total up all the ones that start with 9 in that category, then you can't go over that.
okay.
But really I mean, you can in your department as long as there's enough in other departments in that service area to cover it. You know, like how we did the reappropriation for the ambulance.
Right.
We pulled from that service area in your department to give it to them so that they would have budget.
So what I'm hearing is we can leave it like it is, but if we spend it, we should code it appropriately.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Okay, anything else in that category? Buildings,
Well,
that's
before we
ARPA, that's
leave page
ARPA.
5, I want to,
Yep.
are we, never mind, I think I know the answer to that. So we go ahead, I was just looking at the court liability, but we're still in the middle of a,
That's, yeah,
No, that's the number that Abby came up with,
okay,
15% increase from the current years.
okay. But we've been spending it, is what I'm saying. I mean, we've had
$88,123, that's what we spent this year.
right. That's what
Year
I'm
to
saying.
date.
Paid for in December,
okay,
for the January 1st renewal.
all right. So are we ready for page 6? Okay, then we have,
No, I want to go page 5 some more.
okay,
Under land, it's probably almost 2/3 the way down.
That's
440.
conservation.
Yes,
that's the,
but why are we having number 673,785 for next year's budget?
Then there's revenues to offset part of that
Okay.
too, because you're gonna spend part of it and then be reimbursed and then spend some more.
It just
That's
seemed
the
like a
way
lot.
that I know,
Yeah.
that's the way that grant works, but the
Okay.
offsetting amount is shown on the revenue
Yeah.
side.
it's a destination Iowa grant.
Yeah, that's all ARPA and
Yep.
state money, that's not. property
Because we
tax
still have a
money.
little ARPA money for you, don't we?
That is
You
the
have
ARPA money right there.
It
The
is.
original amount you gave me is still. That's what that is.
Okay.
Was it 440,000?
440, and we
That's the
spent some of
net.
that, and then we get reimbursed, every time we get reimbursed, we get reimbursed 40% of our bills. So
Okay.
we spend it, get reimbursed, spend it again.
Mhm.
Till it's all spent, but.
And
but
we're
it's-
showing it on the
that's
revenue
not-
side too.
That's outside money.
Yeah.
Right, so I got a question, just procedure. Thank you, Sean. I understand exactly what you're saying, but does he have to do a budget amendment every time that comes in to be able to use it again?
No, because that's why
Because
we're
we
budgeting
budgeted.
it now.
Okay.
Yes. Is we put it here.
If you guys want to continue to.
All right. Are you ready? Any more questions on page 5?
No,
All right, let's go to page 6. Okay, that's insurance stuff, which we already gone over. So moving on, auditor's department. It's pretty standard.
Abby, is that enough election supplies for the next year?
We have a good supply of
Okay.
things, and I'll probably do some purchasing here before the primary, so that'll be
Yeah.
out of this fiscal year.
What is under administration, data processing? Because it looks like
What page?
page 7 toward the bottom,
Hmm.
because it went from like 1,700 in the budget this year, 1,300's been spent, and we put 6,500 in.
That is new computers for 3 people in the office.
Okay.
We're on like a 5-year rotation.
I'm having a problem with my computer where the very top of it goes blank and I can't work in it anymore. So then the only thing I can do is restart my computer.
Okay.
That's not handy.
None. All right,
Can you wait till next year to get it?
I'm wondering if I can.
Cause it seems like to me
It
you're
seems
gonna
like
waste
it's
a lot of
happening
time
more.
rebooting all the
Yeah.
time.
I don't know. We'll see.
we don't want you to lose any important data.
I don't feel like I'm gonna lose anything, but I had talked to PCS about it and they think it's a video card, but they said to replace the video card I might as well just get a new computer, especially since mine's almost 5 years old.
Sure.
We were on, I think, page 8 now.
Page 8
Mhm.
comes after 7. right?
Usually.
Okay.
So yours actually went down. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on to treasurer.
That page 9.
Yeah, bottom of page 8.
Oh.
Okay. Do you have any questions, do you have?
No, no,
All right,
criminal cross.
We had 10 now.
we are on page 10, county attorney.
If that includes legislators. Just. Is this oh, is that line 2 included? Andy, is it a?
Yes.
Okay.
Page 10, the second line in the attorney's budget.
You saw my.
Yeah, I've been working with these numbers a lot.
Do what?
Been working with these numbers a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have.
So like sugar points.
Mhm.
All right, any questions there? You want me to move on?
We can move on.
All right, sheriff. Page 11. Hey Bart, we took that 200,000 out for the cameras.
Claire,
Thank you, Bart.
just, you know, Joe's been talking to that guy and he wants to meet with you guys.
You what?
He wants to meet and be on the agenda.
That's perfect.
Put them on sometime.
I think the 26th is what we're shooting towards.
Okay.
Sounds like Joe and this Brian Courtney are available that date.
Also, you received a letter from the state jail inspector.
I didn't see anything.
Not yet.
When do you,
I got it yet.
have an email?
Um,
I haven't seen it.
when they send it.
Has it been 2 weeks already?
I'll go back and look at that.
Yeah. What's his name?
Delbert, Longley.
Thank you.
Oh.
What do you have for vehicles next year, Bart? In here,
What do I have in there for vehicles? I think I have 2 replacements. We'll find the number. It's not quite 2.
is that jail inspector email anything budgeted in here we need to address?
It was already submitted before
Okay,
he did his inspection.
okay,
I knew it was coming. We gotta fix some stuff.
okay. Cause I can look at it now, if it'll help, I'll let her know.
I resent it to you, Dee. I think you may have had the wrong email.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember getting it. Doesn't mean I didn't get it.
It did one.
Said that he had the wrong email.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
he used my name, he didn't use the letter D, so I didn't get it. But I have it now, thanks, Jerry. So do you have this stuff in your budget, Bart, for,
yeah, we're getting, trying to figure out costs on what it's gonna cost.
okay,
There's people and they're coming in now as far as invoices or estimates.
so you could have to do that this year or next year?
Probably need to get it done before he inspects it again.
Is that a year or is that like a couple months he comes
Well,
back?
it's gonna be in next budget.
Okay, all right. So it's currently in here, you think?
What is currently in where?
For what you need to do?
No, that was submitted before the
That's what I
inspection,
wondered.
and I'm trying to figure out what it's gonna cost. I haven't adjusted anything in there to cover that.
Okay.
The shower will probably gonna be expensive.
Okay.
I don't know, on the back.
Hey Bart, I do have a question. Everything looks great, except I'm concerned about the food prep services. Last year was 53,000. You've already spent 47 out of this year, but now you're wanting 123,000 budgeted.
123 goes way back years and years ago. Greg carried that number, and at the time, we were running somewhere around 110,000. And food has gone up, so last spring, when I cut, and then I come back and cut 4% of my total budget.
Yeah. I just saw that last.
A lot of that money come out, that I decrease that line item, I'm gonna exceed the money that's in there, I know that already.
I just see that you across the board, 123,000, but last year was only 53,000. I didn't know if
It was only 53,000, no.
well, 23, 24 budget, total budget 53,000. So it was just a
Well,
question.
Yeah, but you're
Maybe that-
right, we've got 47, and that's because you told us when we met with you, your average census has gone way up. So therefore your
Yeah,
food costs
yeah.
have gone up, what?
My
20?
daily average increased by 4, and it's not getting any less.
Right, so that
On
cost,
higher numbers, which affects that.
yeah,
I mean, 4 daily average increase is over a $20,000
right,
food
that's
cost.
what you told us when we met with you.
It was just a question. Something hopped out at me.
You're still contracted with IV or however you do that, and
How's that working out? I think
Good overall. Yeah, a few little bumps here and there.
is it a flat rate or?
Breakfast, lunch and dinner, has to each rate.
Is that
So $3, $5.50 and $5.50.
per meal, right? So if when you're attend, I hate to use the word attendance, but when your volume goes up, so does the. So I know you said you don't have a cost yet, but, and I understand that, but you said you thought the showers, for example, were gonna be pretty expensive. Ballpark idea?
40 to 60,000. And it's, yeah, they have to come in and remove any existing paints and whatnot. Yeah, there's a certain way that they have to do the box.
And what was what was the hiccup as far as the inspector was concerned? I mean, water still comes out of them, right? I mean, they can still get wet and.
Correct. They're all concrete. You know, they're concrete and there's a big crack in one of them. And maybe more than one. There's just some repairs that need to be done.
He just says the showers need improvement.
how many showers are you talking?
7.
And then he also says due to the age of the jail facility, it would be advantageous to develop and implement a 5 to 10-year plan to address aging equipment and physical structure of the jail.
It's in the bill of the state.
We'll go over this here.
They can't have it both ways, folks.
There. You ready to move on?
We on page 12?
And on the bottom, 14.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to do that. You can go. Because the food's a main place for you increase, correct?
Well, actually, he didn't increase the food, it just. Because he's still at 123, probably, well, okay, yeah, he budgeted.
With the
50.
exception of
I
last
see that
year.
now.
Because
Right.
food costs have gone up and he has more prisoners in him,
Right.
so. All right,
How many jail cells do you have there? Jared,
The 32 bed facility, they have to be classified all correctly
Yeah.
for,
yeah,
so when you get into mid-20s, it's kind of.
what are you running
You
now?
might have to juggle because you're classified to be in certain areas.
right. Thank you.
Right? Wait, move on to recorder?
Yeah.
All right, 14. This one's usually pretty straightforward. Looks like any increase has been in data related areas.
Mhm. Kelly, are you expecting to get any more computers or new computers?
Am I this year?
Yeah,
No, we went through and we're on a schedule for those every
yeah.
so often we budget, not this year.
Any questions, Sarah? You wanna move on?
I'm good.
All right. Planning here. This one's usually pretty straightforward. Again, it's like it's supposed to be submitted to the state. Yeah. If I remember. It came in.
So Abby,
She's waiting.
what is administration in the roads?
Good question. I don't know. What page are you on?
I'm on page 16 under function 7,000. Was 198,000 in 21-22, 175 in 2023.
I mean, I think that all gets broken out.
Because when I look and then I look below, here's salary and FICA and I include employee group insurance. And then salary, and I didn't know if our maintainer operators were in there. I don't know. I look at this, it's hard for me to tell.
Yeah, if you go to. Just because I was remembering, he actually decreased his budget overall. So it's 4.8 million to 4.4. And that's on page 23. It looks like some of that is, he didn't replace that one position, so that'd be quite a bit.
It doesn't match. Maybe. I really. Wouldn't be right. It would be best because this is. Maybe it's a combination of. Multiple parts of multiple people. My guess is it's. Parts of multiple people's jobs because. I can't pinpoint that salary necessarily.
In other words, he has to allocate towards the projects. So to speak.
It's, yeah, that's what makes it,
Because
it's
I see.
hard to check it.
Well, no, I get that, and I'm just asking, because like, for example, we have. Now somewhere in here, we've got road clearing, so obviously he allocates. Salaries to road clearing. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot of extra work.
I think it's a DOT requirement.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he reports it like they required it.
Yep. Okay.
Good. Any questions there? Or we move on? So he's decreased it by not quite 400,000, but close.
So I want to go back, just since we're on this, just real quick, on this estimated balance in real basic. Would be, but that's an accurate number, considering where we were at the end of the last fiscal year.
Are you talking about the road fund?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't print out the road fund.
Okay. Because I'm looking here, and we specifically said that no new equipment unless it was an absolute necessity on that $250,000 line item, and he spent $249,000. And that was to be part of the ending fund balance to make up for the 1.8 million.
I can update the secondary road fund balance estimate. I can email that to you.
I mean, I appreciate Dee's right. He's reduced his budget by roughly $300,000, 350. But I want to know what the ending balance is going to look like. Because he only has spending authority on 600,000 of that 1.1 million. That was another thing that we said, that when we transferred that 1.1 million, we didn't want to restrict the transfer, but we didn't want him to get hammered on the other end. But we only gave him spending authority on $600,000 of that.
He is up to 3.3 million out of his 4.8 million budget this year. That seems kind of high for where we're at through the year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I'll say this, it is winter. And we did have a lot of, but basically it's that 1.1 is included in there. And I'm just doing some quick math. 3.1 versus 4.8 leaves him 1.5, and you take 600,000 off of that.
I don't think it was included in there because that's where you made the transfer, but you didn't give him the budgeted authority to
Right.
spend it. So it would not be
Okay,
included
and
in
that's,
that.
and that's fine. Okay. And again, I appreciate the budget cut, but I also know that that is also reflective of projects that we had anticipated doing that probably are not going to be doing.
And I know we got a couple grants too, which would have increased the revenue.
So you want to make a budget amendment for those grants.
Well, and as far as I know, we haven't heard yet whether or not that
Federal,
has been funded.
I don't think it has.
So that project, in all likelihood, unless it happens very quickly within the next week or so, that project won't happen this next construction season. Just saying. So it's gonna remain gravel. And I
You
think
have some
that,
mad people.
huh?
You're gonna have some mad people.
But the thing is, it's not our fault.
No, it's
I'm gonna
not,
say that.
but,
Pardon?
I didn't say.
but they wanted that asphalt instead of the seal coat. And I think they're gonna get seal coat anyway, but
Yeah.
it's what it is.
All right, can we move on to veterans? Here you go.
Who's the veterans?
It is on
Oh,
page
sure.
23 at the bottom. So that's. Yeah, really see anything that jumps out there.
Nice, a little bit less.
Okay. Where do you wanna go next?
Well, the next one's conservation.
What page are you on?
Well, it's the bottom of 24 and then goes to 25.
Yep, that's mine. Mhm.
And I don't really have a problem with it. It's up $6.
Yeah,
And
Gonna
It's
have
up
to raise
$6.
$6, yeah.
I don't know that I've seen the current numbers there, but,
They're the same as what you had put in. The only difference would be the wages.
or the wages are what is on this sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes.
So yeah, the only increase should have been on the ICAP. And I probably am paying less in wages than I am in the current year, or budget is less than wages. Because I've had two people leave and replace them with people that are making less.
I'd just be flipping on the $6.
Yeah.
yeah, right. We'll move on. Health board. So, because that's all we can deal with.
What in the world is?
What is donation?
What?
Donation,
for your public health.
yeah,
I think she has one or two individuals that give them so much money a year.
But this is the expenditures.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's gone from 2,000 to 7,800.
That's her planned expenses out of that donation money.
Okay.
And how, sorry, go back to 27. Okay, go to the CCM, safety and protective. Our budget's 1,000, we've only spent 422 and we've got 5,000. When we reduce that any, I know we just have to reduce the bottom line, but.
What is that?
Well, that would be the nurse that goes visit the childcare places. But they didn't spend that much this year.
Yeah, I don't know why that's been reduced and then increased.
And then one right below it, PHEP. Has been 0 and now that's 5,000.
What is that?
Didn't she say it was public health emergency preparedness?
It's gotta be.
PHEP.
Yep.
Okay.
And official publication had 2,000 in it and they've used 510 year to date.
Can we reduce that?
Yeah, how about if we take that down to 1,000? What do you think? And do you want to take that one above it down? And again, we can only do the bottom line, they can,
Sure, so we're looking at,
but we gotta
you know,
track what we want to
Correct,
reduce it
correct.
by, so that'd be 1,000. Either one of those 5,000s, do you want to reduce from the bottom line? Considering one has spent 422 and one has spent 0.
Right. I guess the question I have is, I mean, I can see where you can reduce both those line items by half.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Okay, do what?
That's what I was thinking. So take 5,000 out of there.
But, you know, it's so hard sometimes to, because in 22, 23, they had almost $5,800 in training. So they budget 3,500 for this fiscal year and and to date have done 1,450.
I'm pretty sure both of those are grants.
Okay.
So maybe some years they haven't gotten the grant. I don't
The,
know.
this, oh, you're talking about the PHEP?
Yeah.
Those are grants, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think
Okay.
she did say something
That's
about
right.
that, then you'd have to take it off the revenue side as well.
Right.
okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You could always give her a budget amendment if she ends up getting the grants.
So what do you want to do there?
Well, that would explain why in the previous years it's been 0. And it's not this year. What would you call that? Public health
Emergency preparedness.
And so that's a grant, and like you said, I assume she has to write for it. Well, I guess what I'm saying is if you take it off as an expense, you have to take it off as a revenue, so it's a wash.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
doesn't change
okay,
anything.
but if she gets it, I mean, maybe she doesn't get it. I don't know. Can she spend it then?
Yeah, because it's a bottom line budget.
I know. So I guess I'd rather err on the side of going somewhere in the middle. Which would be what you originally said. Taking each of those down 2,500 and that would decrease the revenue. But I'm open. Comments? Mm. Can we look at mileage? So they have that car now. They've got 4,500 in there and year to date, it looks like they're at 1,400.
Mileage.
It's middle of the page, right under
Oh, let's see.
those other two. Looks like a little bit could come off there maybe.
So what you're saying, you'd like them to use the car more than take their personal vehicle?
Wouldn't that make sense since they have their car?
Does, yes.
But let's say if they're gonna do 2,800 this year, they've got 4,500 in there, so how about if we go with,
35?
okay, that works. And again, we'll just add these up for the total. Go down to sanitation and disposal. So I've got 3,000 and they've spent 481 year to date. So take that times 2, you're looking at about $900, and last year they spent $869, so it seems like a little bit could come off there.
So you want to do 1,000,
What do you think?
1,000?
1,000, Lee?
Yeah, I don't know what it's all. I agree. I mean, 1,000 should cover it based on the
Historical
most
data.
expensive year was 1,100.
Yeah.
There again, what we're doing now with this is adding and subtracting dollar amounts to the
The bottom
total
line.
balance, so she's gonna be able to move around there.
All right. So if you add those up, it depends if you take that 5,000 or not. So it's
Oh,
either,
I took that down. I took those two line items I took down to 5,000.
okay, so then we've gotten, it'd be 5, 6, 7, 10,500. We've reduced the bottom line. Is that what your calculation says?
Well,
I have 7,000.
I'm looking at, we moved employee mileage to 3,500.
That's 1,000.
Yeah.
1,000.
5,000, there's 6,
Yeah,
and then
that's
7,000.
5, 6, 7.
Okay.
So
Where'd I
what do you
get-
have?
Oh,
7,000.
I added the 3,500 there. Even?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Great,
So you're at 450 roughly. Right?
yeah,
But there's 185,000, well, depends on the grant thing now, so at least 180,000 or whatever. Off of that.
okay. Weed commission. Are you okay moving forward?
Yeah, that's at the engineer's office. right?
Yep, so that. And that's just for. There's not any salary there, it's just for the union supplies. Well, you know, that probably could go down a little, they only spent year to date $60 round figure. What is,
That's, all that's used for actually is, as if I understand it, is publications and stuff.
yeah, but look here at agriculture, horticulture, it's been 2,300 since the last 3 or 4 budget years.
They don't actually do the spraying. If
And
it
they
needs to
haven't
be
used
sprayed, they
any.
hire someone.
So we can get rid of that 2,300, nothing's
What
been
if,
spent.
what if they need to hire somebody to do the spraying this year? That, so
Then that would come there.
that department's budget is only $3,000. If you need more than $3,000 for that department, you have to do a budget amendment.
Okay.
If you leave it there and they don't spend it,
Goes to general.
it just goes back to the general fund. Or the rural fund, it's all
Well,
rural
and
fund.
to be sure, and that's fine, I'm not arguing the point. Dan had to hire somebody to spray it. Road department has the capability of spraying.
So if they're gonna do the spraying themselves, then it would make sense to take that out.
But
We don't know that.
we haven't had that conversation with Dwayne.
Besides, there's gonna be a drought again, so the weeds don't grow as fast.
But
I also wonder. I guess it does look like it's only been $98 for that publication, but we've got an extra paper to publish it in now too.
Okay,
It still should be under the 200.
I did bring that up yesterday and there were 4, I think there was 1 representative and 3 senators and they all took notes on that.
Good, yeah.
that's probably as far as it goes.
They
But
were actually real people.
they were real people.
One has a brother that is a county supervisor, so that was
Oh.
kind of helpful.
That I'll bet they're not on each other's Christmas cards this time, just.
He said he has to listen to it every weekend.
Yeah, so back to the, on that spraying, it should be the property owner's responsibility to eradicate those weeds, and if we have to go eradicate them because they don't, then we're going to bill the property owner.
Yeah,
That's the way it should be handled, as far as
yeah.
I'm concerned.
For senators, I can't. There's that 50 people.
But do we have to pay it first and then get reimbursed?
Well, we might have to, but by the same token, in our right of ways, in our ditches, our road
Yeah.
crews spray.
So that's too much.
So, well, and so we have the capability of doing
Oh,
that.
they have 4 people. So maybe we don't need anything there now.
Well, I'm with you and I understand at this point, if you just leave it there. Year to date, we've spent $59 round figures. It just rolls over.
You get 65 budget.
It's because she wanted to add in
Yeah. Are you on page 28?
I am.
At the top of page 128 is employee group insurance. Public Health Department has 4 employees. 4 times 13,000, 30 is 52,000 something,
Yeah.
not 65.
And that's what we've got.
65 was in the current year's
Yeah,
budget, because
okay.
she was gonna hire
Yeah,
this,
that's
the
one, I
secretary.
couldn't find it anyplace else. I was kind of wondering.
But it's here, 52 right there. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty, where to? DHS?
DHS.
So what are we gonna do?
Well, I just simply asked the question I've asked every year. Why are we paying for their telephones? And why are we paying for their office supplies? And why are we paying for their postage and mail? There's $24,000.
Hmm?
The electric power, I understand. The custodial, it's our building. Although I'll be honest with you, I think it needs to stay at the 9360,
Yeah,
which is the current rate.
well, when we talked to them, it sounded like they only have, what, 4 to 6 employees in there anymore.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because I asked him, oh yeah, that's the day you couldn't leave
Yeah.
it.
Have you seen the code section that speaks to us having to pay for these expenses? You
Let's
know,
get it.
I talked to the budget director in Des Moines County yesterday because I know
Yeah.
her. And she said that it's in the code that we have to pay these expenses, but maybe I should get the code section from
Yeah, which
her.
please,
Well, you know what?
Because she said they do too.
Time to
another code they can change.
system. You know, I mean, to me, it's,
Or to see about getting it changed.
well, it's. You come along here on the one hand and say, you've got to do this and you may have to cut services, to get in under this umbrella. Okay, I understand that. But then to turn around and fund a state department?
Yeah.
No. No. I have people come along and telling Bart that we don't like the crack in the concrete block. So we're gonna spend $60,000 to, and I don't know what it is, But I just, my feeling on this.
But they tell us that we can't levy an additional 60,000.
Right. Right. So if anybody says anything, well, I'm gonna get part of that 60,000 out of the DHS budget. It's just,
How about if we take sanitation down a little, because year to date it's 360. I know he's only got 1,000 in there, but we take a couple hundred off there probably. You want to do that?
well, the electric power, the water and the sewer. Again. I understand that. Here, data processing. They got $1,000 in data processing. And we're paying for their account auditing and clerical services. Why?
That's the report that we have prepared by Cost Advisory Services.
So why?
So that we can get
This is
reimbursed.
the lobby.
Well, so you look at the bottom line, okay? So we took $640 out of the custodial, put it back to where it was at. $640.
Here,
He's down about $1,400, $1,500 from last year.
let's go to right at the bottom there, office and equipment. Last couple of years, they haven't spent hardly anything out of it. And,
Just zero it out.
well, they spent $27 year to date, and they've got $1,000 in there.
Yeah, what's it gonna cost us to get that crap up out of the basement?
Well, that's out of our budget, no.
Exactly.
I know, so
But it's
let's,
their furniture.
maybe we shouldn't let them buy anymore
That's why I
until
say
it's,
zero it out.
all right, yeah. Take
I thought
1,000,
the restore was gonna come take all of that.
I
Well, they
know,
might, but that's,
Should be nice to know.
what's Jared doing on the weekend?
Haha,
So-
not doing that.
we said middle of February, so we're about there.
So what is
So take 1,000 out of that one.
What is buildings? I know what a building is. But they got $1,000, they spent $473 so far, they spent 1,400 and some change the last year.
Furnace filters maybe, stuff like that, I don't know. That's the outside of the building we have to deal with.
Right, yeah, and the roof and all of that stuff, and I get that. And their stationery and office supplies,
Okay. Do you want to take any more than 1,000 out of there?
well, we cut we cut back $640 on custodial. Yeah, I do,
So we cut 1,640? Any more?
I guess I put it this way, rather than do it that way, just bottom line, I say $48,000 round figures, and then they can put it where they want to put it.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Susie,
Oh, yeah,
all right,
That's not near what I think it should be, but
me neither.
all right,
So we'll do baby steps.
yeah,
page 29. Environmental health.
what are you doing?
Environmental health, it's at the bottom of page 28 where it starts. That should be,
The offset there is the revenue,
mhm.
so we're about, what did I say, 17,000 less expenses versus revenue. I've got it here.
So theoretically, off that 104, you take 17.
Yeah. Got it here somewhere. All the paperwork that Shannon gives me.
So it's actually a little bit less than this year. It's about the same,
What
87,
number is that?
27.
27.
27? And in fact, I should have invested in a paperclip company.
86,305
Is what?
is your revenue estimate
Okay.
for that department.
Yeah,
That figures out too. So,
all right,
yeah, $18,000.
okay, moving on. Medical examiner,
I never have understood all that. For sure, except we have to fund it.
that's another unfunded mandate leave.
Yeah.
Um,
But of course, that's autopsies and
Ours is a lot more reasonable than a lot of other counties.
yeah, I think they've been,
We've been lucky that we've gotten them to do it for us.
okay, so let's go to district court. Okay, Lee, start in again. Same song, different verse.
Yeah, let's just go down to the bottom line and look at the bottom line and say. Wait a minute.
This is one of the ones, this is my right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just, it's unpredictable.
So what all factors into that, Abby?
So
Oh, I
We
see.
have to pay, I believe it's to Wapello County rent. And we've had to have a court interpreter in the past. We haven't had to in a while. But that's figured in. Guardian ad litem fees so far this year have been almost 20,000, and I'm asking you for more in this budget amendment because it just,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's been a lot this year. So that's the reason for the increase next year.
Juvenile detention's down.
That 6,900 is, I would have to double check, but that's what we pay to the state. There's a fee there. The
Okay.
juvenile detention is obviously down because
Yep.
there's obvious reasons there. Transportation hasn't been quite as much, so that went down.
So just a quick question. On the legal and court-related services, the 6,900 that you just spoke about,
I can go get the bill, cause it's once a year, so I don't.
so we're being invoiced at a flat amount, basically.
See that? Your keys again.
And the bill comes from the state?
This one. Give me 1 second.
This is another one of those departments, if all of the budget isn't used, the remainder just goes back over to your fund balance.
Well, the good news is it's down from last year.
Yeah, just,
You know what, though, if you look to year-to-date activity, they've only spent 31,000.
no, I,
It is from the Office of the State Public Defender,
Okay.
Indigent Defense Fund. And we send it to the Treasurer, State of Iowa. There's a
anyway,
code section that speaks to
It
it.
was mentioning
Well,
that
it
they've only
always
spent
is.
31,000 so far this year.
Anyway, the total budget's about the same as it was 2 years ago. Actuals.
I mean,
I don't know what we can
it's-
change on it.
It's one of those that you could have hardly any expenses other than these ones that, you know, the state defender one, the rent to Wapello County, and then pay nothing else. And then there's a year that
Right,
you
Well,
get
this-
some kids that get in trouble and bam, you have a bunch of bills coming.
right. And shall we just leave it?
goodbye.
Leave it, 141?
So I'm looking, I'm not disputing, because Abby's right, it's a crapshoot, you know, you're rolling the dice, but I'm gonna look, for example, at, the first, so under court-appointed attorneys and court costs for juveniles, obviously, if we look through the years, 19,344, 2640. Well, that was the budget. We spent 25 that year. Budgeted 29, we spent 18 so far this year, so we'll probably push that 29 pretty easy. I'm looking at that round figure is 59,900, I was saying 60,000. I And like I say, she has taken down the juvenile detention. And you indicated we spent roughly 32,000 today. I'd like to just I'd like to round that down to 125,000.
The total budget?
We can always come back and do a budget amendment, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You can't get more money to pay for it, but you can do an amendment to give more budget authority. You just have to pay for it out of something else.
Okay.
it's not like I'm gonna go out and spend whatever is left. I don't have anything to spend it on.
How's that gonna affect our general fund balance? So,
It won't affect the balance because this is one of the ones, like she said, if it doesn't get spent, it will just go back to the. So even if you budgeted $1 million there, you're not gonna, there's nothing that you're gonna go out and spend it on. You're not gonna go get a new car or anything because you're not able to in this budget.
So I have a question, Bart. Generic question. So when I have juveniles, for example, in juvenile detention, and it's costing X amount of dollars a month, because they're juveniles, can we bill the parents? Are they charged with reimbursing us, or is that something that we eat, or is that something we've ever even looked at?
I don't
Say
know if
that's
it's
an-
been looked at. I suppose that's a question for SIAC. They run that in Montrose.
Right. I mean, to my way of thinking,
I mean, it's no different, I suppose, if I have to send an adult out of county to be housed because I don't have any room, I have to pay. I have to pay that other county.
and I realize we have a contract with SIAC, but my point is that we have to pay SIAC because that's the agreement that we have, so many dollars a day. Because all right, I get that, but my point is that we should be able to recoup that. And I look at it this way, when I've got somebody that's down there who has a $500 an hour attorney, the taxpayer shouldn't be paying that bill. If they've got the financial wherewithal to reimburse it, we should at least be charging them. And I don't know how we.
Who determines that?
Huh?
Who determines if the parents have the financial,
You're paying a
Ability.
$500 an hour attorney. Somebody's got the financial wherewithal.
not when they're sending it to the county to pay?
Well, that's my point. But the $500 hour attorney, we're not paying. Believe me, public defender's not getting $500 an hour.
it's probably a question for.
Christine
attorney.
Branstad's getting $500 an hour.
Right, but
Point
it's
in-
too late to deal with that right now.
Well, but it's, if we don't deal with it, and that's what I'm saying. So we got $60,000 allocated here for juvenile detention.
You may not use it all.
No, I get that. But the total activity for 23 was $104,000.
Well,
I get that.
that wasn't out of the ordinary.
I get it. But my point is that those families had the financial wherewithal to reimburse that. So I just think we need to find out how, maybe through SIAC, how is that? I mean, we got to think outside the box here, folks.
So you want to base your billing on the cost of the lawyer?
I'm sorry, which?
You want to base your billing on the cost of the lawyer?
No, I'm just simply saying that when a prisoner goes into our jail, okay, unless the court system says they're indigent and they don't have to pay, they're billed $35 a day. All I'm saying is that the juveniles, that the parents are responsible for that jail cost is, and should be billed accordingly. That's all I'm saying. is-
Whether the lawyer's pro bono or charging $500
Well,
an
right,
hour?
yeah, I mean.
Okay, that's not how you were portrayed.
I know, yeah, and I apologize for that, but I'm just simply saying that for us just to, and we took money out of another budget to cover those costs.
Yep.
I mean, you all obviously remember that conversation, so, anyway,
And that didn't go so well.
so Shannon said we can't go backwards
No,
if we, so.
I'm okay with 125,000 because if you look year to date, that one account is only, or was that? $5,600. So. And they had 110 on it, but push back if you want, Abby, because I know.
I don't care. I mean, it's, like she said, it's,
Yeah, the only pushback I would offer is that it really doesn't accomplish a lot to reduce that budget, because even if you give her the full budget, she's not gonna spend it if she doesn't need it for these expenses,
Okay.
because there's nothing else to spend it on. She's not gonna go get a new computer or a new
Right.
car.
Okay, well, let's leave it then. Okay, ambulance. Speaking of which, Brian just texted, and good news. We've now been granted approval from Blue Cross Blue Shield, so that's good. So I have a question. I'm pretty sure when we did this budget, it was based on 9 months, right? The start
Or
July,
the-
August, September.
The budget that we're in right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Didn't you do,
9 months.
you mean when
plus
when we first did the proposal for this next year?
For the one we're in,
For the one. we're
because
in?
for instance, I'm looking at crew wages this year, 418,000.
Yeah, that was just to last through December, I think. I think that was your initial thought, was that it would last through December. And this
Okay.
doesn't include the reappropriation that you already did or the amendment that you're gonna do on Monday. So I think your initial thought on this fiscal year 24 budget that we're in right now was that it would last through the end of December.
so essentially July 10th, if I remember right, through December
Yeah.
31.
And I think I can't remember whether it was 6 or 650. We estimated revenue from October through the end of the fiscal year.
Or it was through January, because I think they said 5 or 6 months.
I remember sitting in that conversation and it being through December. That's what I remember, but I don't have any
Yeah.
notes that point to
Yeah, we
that.
tried to look back and find that, and neither one of us could really nail that down, but we both feel like we remember.
Through December.
Yeah.
And obviously.
Well, and that would be 5 months from the end of July, which
Mhm.
is when they did it.
Okay, let's start out here with the wages. This is year-to-date actual, so it would only be up basically, other than the
And
people
that's-
that were working ahead October through.
And that, some of that money before July was out of ARPA, right? Maybe not. No, just out of the board's lines.
Yeah.
So that
I
would
don't
be,
think the wages were they? Yeah, none of the wages were this year. Last year, that's what you're thinking
Okay.
of. Last year, it came out of ARPA.
So when I look at this 293,000, is that 4 months?
yeah.
Yeah, but for the crew wages, really, they didn't start until October.
Right.
So
October,
October,
November, December, January.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is to date, so it would include the January 30th payroll. And this number that she's put in there, Judy said to figure 52,000 per pay period. So this is, that includes her and
Every-
Brian, all the crew, FICA, IPers, and the 50925 for insurance. And then we added on top of that, the partial self-funding part.
so she gave us a bottom line and I worked everything backwards
Okay.
and that's how
That's
I,
what this is.
Yeah.
it's within
Good job.
$40 of what she gave as the bottom line, so.
Good work. Good, that's helpful. Okay, let's go to fuel here.
or can we stop for a minute?
Sure.
How much of that's overtime? I've gotten so many been so many discussions and phone calls about the overtime that's being received.
The simplest way to put it or to figure it is you have to cover 336 hours a week. It's 2 full crews, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you cover 336 hours. Now, if you don't cover it with 24-hour shifts and you go 40-hour shifts, then you have to have more bodies and more insurance, because you still have 336 hours
But less
that you have to
overtime,
cover.
but less overtime.
Well, yeah, you have less overtime, but you have more people on staff, and so all of your costs go up. That $13,030, if you add full-time people, you've got to add that $13,030 in there.
Which part-time people don't get. Is that correct?
Exactly right. They get nothing. Conversely, Washington County, and I know it's been brought up a lot because I don't know if you saw, but just the other day, the Board of Supervisors up there voted double time for the mandatory overtime. And what's happening is that you got people who come in or who are scheduled, because when they work a 24 and a 16, if they have to work another 8 hours to cover because the person didn't come in, they're paying double overtime now. They're paying twice because they don't have the bodies in there to do it. And I can't remember her name, the administrator, Katrina. Yeah.
She's their hospice
And,
administrator.
and they're talking about, the problems that they're having, that everybody has. And she indicated that, in fact, she mentioned us as well as Henry County, and they're dealing with Iowa City as well, Johnson County. So, I mean, they've got their own set of problems. The other thing is that it's not impossible to do it, but I think that if you're going to seriously take a look at that, I think for the ease of scheduling, you need to go to 312s. And, and then like we do in law enforcement using the Garcia Act.
But we don't use that with the ambulance.
No, we don't, not now. But what I'm saying is that if I don't think you're going to save any money. I'm not saying that you not look at it. I just don't think you're going to save.
Well, the other thing is, we're avoiding the double overtime because Judy and Brian are filling in.
That's right. And I told Judy when we were working on all of this, that she is to schedule herself and Brian.
Yep.
To cover 36
We
hours a
talked
week.
about that
minimum.
here.
That's what you said.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
And so.
That's what I've told him too.
Lee, I asked Judy to try doing that, and she says it's even for one person. And she said, no, it's not feasible, but I think there's folks that have actually.
Well, I know that they talked to you guys about one of the individuals contracting, which would save us money. And another individual going on salary, which would save us money. It's something that, that the board can take, the board
Yeah.
can take a look at. The other thing I'd like to point out, and I know you guys know this, and it kind of, I don't know, it kind of bugs me a little bit. You've been in negotiations with the hospital, and it's been a pushback and a pushback, and it hasn't really been what I would consider a fruitful relationship. But,
We did get that solved Monday. I'll talk about it.
well,
Okay.
and that's fine, but I'm not really sure that it's resolved to our benefit, but that's okay. My point simply is that the county is saving that hospital $410,000 a year out of their operating budget. And we're saving the city $410,000 a year out of their operating budget.
Yeah.
And,
I agree with you on that, but I was talking about the overtime salary from the ambulance.
but I'm just thinking that when we start looking at, and okay, we talk about Henry County, and I'll use Henry County. I think if it was viable for Henry County, considering the fact that the number of ambulances they're running, they wouldn't be running 24-hour shifts. I just think that when you pencil it all out, it's gonna end up costing you more money.
Mhm.
I guess I just don't understand how or why anybody ever would want to be the director of operations and the base manager when you can make almost the same amount
Yeah,
in
you
48 hours. It doesn't make sense to
we
me.
had that discussion before.
So they can't cover 336 hours a week with 27 employees?
So those, they have 3 full-time medics plus themselves, meaning plus Judy and Ryan.
Uh-huh.
And they have 8 full-time EMTs. And that's how they run their shifts. And then they fill with part-time, excuse me, they fill with part-time when those people aren't available. So they have 27 employees, but they're not all working.
How many are on for each shift?
4
2 medics and
and
2
2 EMTs,
EMTs.
24 hours a day.
Mhm.
So did they just not have enough medics?
We've got more part-time medics, yes, we've got them. But they all work other jobs, 24-hour shifts in other locations. And then we also have 2 EMTs that are only working 36 hours, but they're classified as full-time.
So in other words, they can't figure out how to schedule around everybody else's schedule, make it work, even under 40 hours a week,
Under 40 hours a week,
or at 40 hours a week for everybody. To get rid of this mandatory overtime.
well,
It
the
sounds more like a scheduling issue than a salary issue. If they scheduled it correctly, they could save a couple $100,000 in overtime.
Not without hiring more full-time people.
Overtime. Total
I
With
salary.
the 27 people that they have now, and you just said they have enough
Where
paramedics to
did
go
that sheet
around.
go?
Sounds like a scheduling issue.
They'd have to schedule their PRN people and part-time people more, so that would put them in the full-time.
who have other full-time jobs.
For example,
One of our full-time medics comes from Keokuk. She works at hospital. But she works full-time for us. We've got one that comes out of Michigan that is a traveling medic. And he works in Peoria for 2 weeks out of the month. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be done. What I'm saying is, and they certainly could schedule it. I mean, Washington County's trying it.
they're gonna add, because I talked to Jack yesterday, so
They're gonna add
they're
another
adding
shift.
another crew, so they're gonna have 5 ambulance crews.
But they've got a casino, Dee.
Well,
Yeah,
Can
but
I
that-
ask a question?
I'm just telling you
What
what they're
about the
doing.
third ambulance when you get it? Are they gonna staff that?
No,
I was just curious.
no.
No,
That new one, if it ever shows up, will be used for in town in all likelihood. I don't quote me on that, but it'll be time to start talking about replacing the 2016, which goes in Monday for ball joint on one side or the other. I don't remember which side, doesn't matter. Again, no, you can work the schedule out because Washington does it. It's just not working. And the other problem that you have is that the industry, for lack of a better term, is generally 224s. That's the way that the system is set up.
Lee, I just think,
And here's the thing, if you've got people, when you're working 24 and a 16, it's difficult to get, at least, so I'm trying to think in my mind as I'm looking at the clock, so I come in at 11. Or say I come in at noon and then I get off at 4 o'clock the next afternoon. And then somebody comes in at 4 o'clock and then they work until the wee hours of the morning. And it makes it difficult for folks that are doing the daycare and the other things. But clearly it can be done because Washington County is,
yeah. I just think in the year that we're giving 0 raises, we should deal with this too.
and that's fine,
that's
but
a lot of money.
all I'm wanting to say to you is that understand that this isn't a utopian thought, because if this was the way that it could be done, other ambulance services would be running it exactly that way.
right,
But I think, and so sit down and have them pencil it out. I'm perfectly fine with that. To see what it looks like and how, what do we have to do? And I'm not, and not hypotheticals. How many bodies do we need? Okay, full-time bodies to cover the 40 hours, the 336. Giving them 36 hours a week, we got to cover
Well, they
300
could work
hours.
a few more.
Well, I think that that's a little bit, quite frankly, go back to what she says. Why? I just hang up my base manager track shoes and I just work as a,
Yeah.
okay, and so we're talking about doing the scheduling, we're talking about doing the
We're
payroll,
talking
we're
like
talking
maybe
about working the
40.
truck, what?
40 instead of 36.
Well,
But I think they're picking up shifts anyway, so I think it's working.
right, I mean, if you want them to do it, tell them, sit down and pencil it out for us. I want to see what the actual numbers are and what we've got to have. And then you've got to see whether or not your part-time people
We'll do it.
will do it.
No, that's part of the reason
Well,
we've
I
been able to fill the
Huh?
schedule.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
just to see if
sure.
it can be done.
You know,
It's no different than a rotation of IV. It can absolutely be done.
no, I'm not saying it can't be done. I just told you it's being done in Washington, but it isn't working. And
Well, I'm
that's,
saying it can be done and work.
and not if you don't have people that'll work it. And that's what I'm saying. You've got part-time people that we have on staff. I don't know whether they'll, if they're working a full-time job somewhere else. I'm not saying not to pencil it out, not to look at it. I'm just telling you, I don't think you're gonna save any money, even if you got people to work it. And I don't know what Washington County's payroll is.
I just want to make one comment. I don't want to piss anybody off, but I have 9 deputies and a chief deputy. They cover the same hours all year long.
Right,
I mean, we're out there every hour of the day. So
Right.
We're doing it. And the so-called overtime that we have built in is those holidays. that-
sure.
Yeah.
So we're doing.
It's just a tough pill to swallow when my deputies are told they get 0 and you've got a person out the ambulance that is making a third more than he was hired for.
What do you want me to say? Play a violin? I'm not the least bit concerned about that. In terms of when I talk about the training and the stuff that they have and the hours that they have to work and the things that they have to do.
Mhm.
I got an EMT that's making $18 an hour. And,
You mean we have an EMT?
well, yeah, okay, fine. Say whatever you want to say
Yeah.
it. What I'm saying is they're making $18 an hour. My son makes $21 an hour putting together cabinets down at Hill Phoenix. And I'm not belittling what my son is doing, but it's a lot different in the context of what is required for that EMT to be able to do what they're doing, let alone what a paramedic
Yeah.
is required to accomplish to do.
It's a different skill set.
It is an absolute different skill set, and $30 an hour, I understand the overtime, I understand the angst. I also understand that that's the way that the industry worked. I also understand that Care Ambulance wasn't interested in going to 24/16 because they know how that works. That's why they wanted $1.5 million plus all the revenue that they generate, plus the subsidy.
Yeah. And they couldn't fill the shifts.
And they couldn't fill the shifts.
Lee and D, I think we have to try to figure it out to see if it
Sure,
can be done.
I'm perfectly happy with
You know,
that.
I cares in the past, that's already down in the Mississippi Basin. You know,
Well, yeah, they're in the past, but the system is not. Van Buren County works 24s. And there's a reason that the system works that way. I don't set the system up, but clearly we can say, give us the numbers, show us what it would look like,
Yeah.
and then see if we can fill it.
can you do that?
And I do what?
Show us the numbers.
I guess I'm trying to figure out why I need to show numbers.
Right, I
I'm
agree
not
with Mark,
charging
yeah.
I know that.
150,000 in administrative.
I absolutely know that.
But if I can do
had-
it basically an hour
Okay,
without the other variables that Lee just discussed, I guess I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, you guys told me 0%. So I went to my staff and said 0%, and I live with that. These guys answered directly to you,
yeah.
and yet mandatory. Well, we can't do anything about it. Has there ever been an option? Has it even been discussed? Have they brought anything to you?
No, I think.
Show us a schedule.
Mark,
Give us a schedule that proves that this overtime is actually mandatory and necessary. And don't get me wrong, I'll put Judy Heisel and Damian Wimmer as two people that I want on a truck if I need them. I watched them work on my dad selflessly and effort. I have more respect for them than I can ever say.
This is not saying
However,
anything against their ability to do their job.
exactly.
I'm just,
But if we're supposed to cut,
Yeah.
that's 200 grand in overtime that we have to figure out where it comes from. And you can't take it off the backs of the rest of the departments.
I agree.
I agree.
But
But you're
I
trying
also
to.
want to caution everybody that when it's penciled out, you probably aren't going to save 200,000, but yeah, go look at it. If we can save money, fine. You gotta fill the holes. Okay,
So in other words, you're gonna tell them they
Yeah.
have to do this.
sure, I
That's
have no
what,
problem with that.
And they need to bring it to a meeting, so it's public.
Yeah.
Here is the schedule to prove whether or not this can work.
Yeah. And what we also have to keep in mind that you can't force people to work those hours.
I force my employees to work 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday.
Bart
Right.
said that he did.
Yeah, and Bart does.
I tell,
They
yeah,
can
the
leave and go
deputies when they
somewhere
have
else.
to
is what
work.
what I'm saying is they can leave and go somewhere else where they're working 224.
That's their prerogative.
You're
Yes,
right.
it is. And then we have to take a step back and say, did we overstep here? I'm just saying, we got to consider all of the options.
They worked for us last time I checked.
Yeah,
Well, I guess though, I think what these people are trying to say though, is that you're willing to pay them to keep them on board, but you're not willing to pay us to keep us on board. That's
Yep.
kind
Yeah.
of,
That's what I'm hearing.
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm just
They're
calling
more
calling
important.
the elephant in the room out because that's just what it is.
Well,
So,
that's fine.
should we have taken the ambulance on? Did we have a choice?
Yes.
No, I
I
don't
do.
think we did,
I mean,
because nobody else wanted it and you'd have been without them.
$400,000 is cheaper than millions.
Huh?
I don't think the idea of
$400,000
taking
would
out
have
the
been
ambulance
cheaper
was
than
wrong. I think the
millions.
execution has been.
there was no private company left in Iowa to bid.
Kara would have done it for 400,000 more. It's more than the 1.4
Yeah,
million, or
I-
less than the 1.4 million.
Let me put this in a different way, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I would like to see that if we were to do something that got rid of this mandatory overtime, are we cutting fat or are we cutting meat? Because right now, what you guys have done with us, we're at the point where the fat's gone and you guys are starting to cut meat. And we're looking out there at an awful portly looking hog. Is it fat or is it meat? And I don't think that there's any transparency. And I would like to see a lot more transparency.
And that's fine, and I don't disagree with you, but I'm not sure how you define meat and pork. So for example, and I asked this question the other day when Brian was sitting here. We had 52 out and we spent several $1,000s getting the front end of that truck fixed. And it has to go back in now and it has to get fixed again. Now logic dictates to me that if you replace ball joints on one side, odds are you should probably replace the ball joints on the other side while you're in there. But they didn't do it. And I don't mean the ambulance, I mean the company that did the repair.
Did
What
they
if-
charge us time and a half for a wage, for labor?
I have no idea what they charge.
Because as a taxpayer, you're charging me time and a half, what they're doing out there.
Right. But I mean, what I'm saying is this.
That's fat meat.
I'm saying that's not necessarily something that we budgeted for. We budget for maintenance on that rig. And we have those additional expenditures. We don't know, we're paying what the hospital says we have to pay for drugs. And those things are things that I won't say aren't in our control, but
that's not a huge expense, or has to
Right.
be. So I'm not, is Brian on this? Am I just missing this? Monday?
That all sounds like meat to me.
it
Meet
could
with the
be.
ambulance director.
Yeah.
There's Dwayne, then Dwayne has an authorization on, and then meet with the ambulance director.
pretty sure it's on.
Well, am I missing it, Susie?
hang on a second. I don't see it.
It's disappearing.
This is from 2023.
Hey, it printed, what do you want?
We printed the wrong one. Okay,
Yeah, but hey, I
There
got
you
it
go.
print, okay, we're all good. And she's been going down checking that office as well, right? So now,
now I was writing notes for Monday that I'll keep.
Well, I think I hear that we'll consider discussing this with Brian and Judy and asking them to do it. Do I hear that?
sure.
Get a draft schedule, so that was it.
Why should they be here? It's discuss and consider, should they just be consider or
Yeah.
do it?
I think
Either-
this is one of those situations where the ambulance has been run this way for years and this is the way it's gonna stay. But I think they're gonna have to make a change in how they do things as well, because the budget constraints are not only hitting us, it's gotta hit them as well. And they've made this into a situation where they know how to get paid. I work part-time here, 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 and here. That's why we have a lot of these traveling nurses. They can go somewhere else, get 3 times the pay here, but they don't want to work here because we don't pay enough. But they're making way more there and then coming back here. It's just a matter if whether we have a permanent staff. You work this time. It's like he was saying, Walmart does it, sheriff's office does it. Hy-Vee does it. You have a staff. You can count on that staff. If they don't want to work it, they choose not to, they're gonna go someplace else. We may not have the best people because this is the way it has to be, but they're gonna have to start setting a precedent somewhere because it's happening all over the state, all over everywhere, and this is the way it's been set up. It's gonna have to change. May not be with us. It sounds like it's not gonna be with us. We're just gonna let them run us over. But it's gotta change somewhere, whether it takes legislation or what, to get it changed, but something has to be like permanent staff that you can count on. I mean, you're telling me these people don't show up for their shift. Okay, you can't count on them.
No, that's not what I said. I said.
If
that's
they
why
don't show up for
Washington-
their shift,
That's why Washington went to the double overtime. I mean, double wages for the overtime. Because they're having that problem up there, because they're running the 24/16.
well, they're basically double paying somebody to be bad at their job. And that really isn't what you want to do, is
No,
give
I-
money to somebody who does a crappy job, you know, especially if they're picking me up and I'm like him. I can't say anything bad about the ones we've got. They've come out and picked my dad up so many times in the last 2 weeks. You know, helped us get him to the hospital. They were wonderful. They talked to us about what we could do, how to build this and things like that. I'm good at that. But if they don't want to be there and they don't want to accept the pay that we've got, let us know now. I'd rather have somebody I can count on to be there for that shift so that we're not paying out all this extra money. All it's doing is killing our county. And we can't stand it. I mean, we can't. You know it. We're
not
looking
arguing
at
with you.
zeros.
I'm just.
You
I'm
know,
just-
we've got people, I'm trying to explain why we've got inflation going up. Our electric bills, we just got in the mail, they're going up. Everything is going up. Our pay isn't going up. How are we gonna offset all this stuff? It's like, well, we got a job. Okay.
Yeah,
we got
you don't get a part-time job now.
Yeah, you know, it's single parent mothers, single parent fathers, full one spouse supporting their families. I mean, come on. It's just the way nature of the beast right now. And we're all trying to stretch a dollar out so far that we can't hardly make it anymore. So when you tell somebody they're getting 0 raise, they're automatically going, maybe I should start looking for another job because what's going to happen to this place later on? I don't know whether I can afford this and if somebody offers me better money. I got
Yes.
people looking, people in my office right now. I had one offer a job the other day. You know, and I'm not gonna begrudge them if they leave.
No, I don't disagree with you in the least. Just remember that that applies to all departments, not
It
just,
does.
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
And so
It applies to everybody. You wanna lose everybody?
nobody here is arguing that there isn't a good reason to look at it and see if we can make that work. I just don't know what make that work looks like. I'm not smart enough to be able to pencil that out and to look at that. And then make sure that we've got folks that are willing to do it, because like you just said, they can go somewhere else and make more money.
Exactly.
But you don't care when I say that about me needing to go look somewhere else. You said, don't threaten me like that.
No, what I said is that if you want to go, you can go. I can't stop
But you're
you,
not telling
but I
them.
can't change. Sure. If they want to leave, they can leave. What I'm saying to you guys is that if they do, the consequences can be significant. That's all I'm saying. We lived through this with Care Ambulance. We lived through this with Midwest. We got people that weren't taking transfers. The cost of taxpayers was enormous in terms of what it was, because the hospital was paying the bill on the transfers. Nobody's arguing about looking at it and seeing if we can make it work. I agree with Mark. I don't think there's any reason why you can't make it work as far as the scheduling goes. I believe you're gonna have to put on more bodies, because you're gonna have to have more full-time people. We'll see what those numbers look like. Okay? Well, you can argue with me, but I'm just saying that I believe you're gonna put on more full-time people, because you've got basically, well, you said $200,000 worth of overtime, but you still got all of those hours that you have to cover. And maybe I'm paying it at $18 an hour instead of $27 an hour on the overtime, but I'm paying somebody $18 an hour for 40 hours.
Weren't
I
you,
don't know what it's gonna look like. Like I said, I'd be first to admit, I'm not smart enough to pencil that out.
we'll have,
All I'm saying is that once we get that and we can say, see, it can be done. Now go do it. Now we gotta fill all those spots. And I'm not sure that you'll be able to fill those spots. That's all. So if you can't fill those spots, then what is the answer to the question?
I think for a lot of employees, it feels like a 0% raise feels like you're not valuing them. And this is what our county is about, providing services, and you have to have people to do that. That's our whole purpose of being here. So I think it just feels like you're not valuing your employees when you give them a 0% raise.
Anybody can sit in that chair, but not everybody's gonna have 25 years experience.
I'm not arguing that point, but I'll ask the question, and maybe it's a little bit self-serving, and if it seems that way, I apologize. Well, we're sitting in here talking about raising people's property taxes at least $1 a thousand. Okay, now we've gone through, all of this. We've talked about the 14 cents that we did here or whatever. But those are real numbers. And so those same people that aren't getting pay raises out there or that are working, they're going to come back and they're going to say, wait a minute. You gave pay raises and raised our
Yeah.
property taxes.
and about a third of them are on fixed incomes.
Now, I'm fully well, and I mean, if you want to do it, or if Susie wants to do it, or you want me to do it, I'm more than willing to go out there and say, I want these numbers, I want to see them.
Right.
And I want to see what it'll look like. I don't want you BSing me. I want
We can talk
real
about it
numbers. I
Monday.
want to see schedules. Okay, I don't have to see bodies right now. I want to see the schedule, what it pencils out to financially.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm perfectly fine with that. And then we have to look at being able to fill those.
It's a multi-step process.
It
First,
is.
you gotta figure the schedule out. Then you gotta figure out how many full-time people, take it times benefit, do the cost analysis. It's not rocket
Right.
science.
And I'm perfectly okay with that. In regards to not valuing you, I can't hardly say that word, that certainly is not the case.
That may not be the case, but that's the implication.
That's the perception.
I have,
How long is it gonna be before we run the county out of money if we keep doing what we're doing?
well,
I mean, That's
That's
another thing that
terrifying.
we're looking at, because
Mhm.
the employees are also looking at it as how long can we stand this? And maybe I should be looking now. That means everybody.
Well, I gotta,
Because- And you can't hire anybody if you have no money.
Well, and as you guys are well aware of, we talked about this multiple times. Our ICAP premium isn't 122,000, it went up 122,000. Our health insurance that we're not billing you for went up 47,000.
It's still coming out of the bottom line somewhere. right?
Sure, but that's the
So it's
point.
still,
It's coming
we're
out
still
of the bottom
taxpayers.
line.
We're still helping pay for our own.
And
So,
conversely, the state, you just heard Shannon say, the state says, you can't raise rural basic and you can't raise general basic, and you can only pay for certain things out of general supplemental, which currently is running a negative balance. I can't fix it in terms of being able, now, if our valuations go up, I don't want to say this, if you're charging $3.50 a thousand on the levy, and you have X amount of dollars of valuation, 1,046,000,000 or something we've got right now. As that valuation goes up, we stay at the 350, we see more dollars.
But we can't stay at the 350 because they're cutting us.
Well, I thought 350
Oh,
was.
350, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But even if it goes up more than the 6%, even if
Yeah.
we're down to the 350, they still are gonna cut us.
And I have to deal within that context. I don't disagree with you.
That's why we really need that emergency medical services levy.
And there again, we can do that if the voters approve it.
Right?
That's.
I'll tell you the
If they
same
don't
thing that I
approve
told
it,
her a
then-
couple of weeks ago. As a voter, I would be more than happy to pay an extra $100 a year in my taxes and know that I don't have to go to someone to get a driver's license and that an ambulance is gonna be there. Why you guys didn't think of this a year ago is beyond me. You guys put the cart in front of the horse to start this whole thing. And now we have to figure out a way to recoup these losses,
Well, we were taking in the hospital's levy at this point.
which is 27 cents. You can go up to
Right.
75. That's an additional
Yep.
48 cents per thousand.
Actually, we can go to 75.
You're already getting 27 from. the
Well, they're gonna
ambulance.
take theirs away.
Right, so you,
So we go.
what I'm paying in taxes right now, I'm only gonna
Right.
see a 48 cent increase.
I see what you're saying. Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
But, and I don't disagree with that, but we didn't know what the numbers were going to be. And I didn't want to raise taxes on people or go to the voters till we had some idea of what we were talking about.
And our question now that you guys aren't disagreeing with us about the situation is, now you know,
Right.
that you're into it, that you're
And
running a
Susie
serious
mentioned
risk.
The other day about.
You're running a
75
serious risk of
levy.
not only bankrupting the county, but potentially losing services like driver's license, passport. Do these guys end up having to just pull in one place because we can't afford to hire people to go into precincts? These are things you guys need to think about and you guys need to answer to.
You know,
What are you going to do to fix this?
Lee,
Yes, going out and getting the schedule is one thing. You guys don't disagree with us at all, and we appreciate that. But where's your solution? What are you guys gonna do? And we want to see that moving forward. We don't
So
expect
let
an
me
answer
ask you a
right
question.
now,
I
but in the
know
next
that-
couple of weeks, I want to see how it works.
I know that you know, you're saying, okay, I wouldn't have any problem with the 75 cent levy, and I appreciate that. I don't know whether the rest of the public feels that way. I guess we'll see to some extent, maybe, and I know I'm not comparing apples to apples. But I'm really curious to see what happens on the PEPAL tax. And the doubling of that PEPAL tax. And so then the question is if that happens to fly, is the appetite going to be the same to add another 75 cents or 48 cents?
You can spin it. You can always spin it.
Right.
What can you control? You can't control that. You can control the ambulance. Little line item at the bottom of the tax bill that says exactly how much is going towards the ambulance. You're transparent. John Q. Public does not, that's all they want to see. How are you doing? How are you going to make sure that if I want a driver's license, I can still come in here? If I want a passport, I can still go in there. If I want to vote at the high school, I can still go there and maintain all of this stuff while still being able to know that Bart and his staff's out there to protect me. That's the question from the public. How are you guys going to do that moving forward? And that is the answer you need to give sooner rather than later. Not as an employee, as a tax-paying citizen that you answer to.
And the bottom line is I'm going to have to raise your taxes. And I've got to figure out a way to be able to do that and still work within the confines of the law that the legislature has given me. Which simply is I can't raise your taxes. Okay, I can do a special levy. All right. That's a given, because now the legislature said you can declare it an essential service. We had to actually officially declare it an essential service, which we have indeed done.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're at that point. So we have that special levy that has to be voter approved. Otherwise, because I've had conversations about taking it out of rural basic, I had conversations about using sales tax.
If you tell the voters that that is solely the purpose, that you're not giving raises, that it's solely for them to have an ambulance while still providing the services that they currently are receiving.
You think I wouldn't try, I don't like to use the word spend. You think that that's not the conversation I would have, putting that out to the voters? I'm not opposed to putting it out to the voters. I question whether or not the voters are willing.
I'm a pretty conservative person. That's how I would define myself. And if my county said, hey, we're gonna have to raise your property taxes X number because of providing this service, well, yeah, I mean, if I call it, I want to know that they'll be there. I want my family and my friends taken care of. So if that's solely the reason as a taxpayer that I'm given, okay.
And your argument is, we tried like hell for a year to figure out how to make it work within what we have. Turns out we can't. So now we're gonna have to do it this way to give you the same
Right.
service.
I don't have, I've never been opposed to the levy other than
Mhm.
having to levy. I mean, I don't like raising people's
It's
taxes.
got a sunset of 15 years. You can always cut it once that, it's gonna take what, 5 to 7 before you really start seeing anything out there? I mean, we still haven't seen any revenue from it,
Right.
and they've been open for over 4 months.
Right.
If you want new programs, you have to find
But
a
if
way
you
to
look
pay
at your
for them.
explanation,
Exactly.
if you look at your explanation of benefits, when you use your insurance, you know why we haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
Seems like they have carte blanche to take whatever, but, so when we go back to, we can beat this horse, but we'll go back, all right, I don't know. If you want me to go do it, I'll go do it. If you want to go do it, that's fine. I don't care. We'll say, I want to see it. I want to see real numbers.
Well, do you
I don't
want to
want any
talk to
BS.
them Monday or you want to?
No,
go out
I think
today?
I think it needs to be done today. Okay, I wait until Monday, I don't know where the advantage is waiting until Monday, other than you can say it, well, we're on Zoom anyway, so there's people listening. I'm perfectly fine with that. I really am, Mark. I'm not arguing with you
Right.
at all.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to start a fight by any means. I just,
But I'm
I
not.
want an answer.
convinced. And I
it
guess
seems
that's,
like a shell game right now,
right,
and I want transparency.
okay.
Cause I
that's
go and tell
perfectly
my
fine.
people they can't have a raise, but they see mandatory overtime and just money funneling there
Right.
for
Right.
God knows what.
We understand that.
But I just wanted everybody to understand that if it does legitimately come back, that there either A, is no change, or it costs more, that we accept that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I don't know whether it will or it won't. I know what I've been told, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's
Yeah.
accurate.
Yep. You guys are seeing people.
When I say it's not accurate, I mean, I don't think it's actually, I think they penciled things out, but I don't think it's been done in earnest or in.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know,
I'd lay odds it could
I
be
will
cut
say
in half.
one thing.
I'd lay odds it could be cut in half.
I will say one thing. As a county and as taxpayers, we're very lucky that we had 1.2 million out of the ARPA funds to give.
Agree.
Otherwise, we'd really be in a mess.
Well, otherwise the hospital fund would have had to have stepped up to the plate and done what they should have done a long time ago.
My hope and my prayer is a year from now, we're not having this conversation.
I
Right.
A
agree.
year from now, we're discussing salary increases, we're discussing the revenue that the ambulance has brought in, and we're discussing how valued our staff is.
Right.
Not, you get 0, they get whatever, because they can't figure out the schedule. And nothing against them, no disrespect, no animosity whatsoever.
It's just the process.
I want transparency.
Fair enough. So you want me to go do it? You want to go do it? You want to go do it?
Doesn't matter. You
Not
can
to
go
me.
do it.
Thank you very much, guys, for hearing us out.
Sure. Yeah.
Anticipating the action.
Okay. Can we finish those now? Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Any?
Oh, we're not
any
done?
Other changes you wanna make in this?
You're not gonna let the final say.
I don't even know where we're at now.
General
page,
relief, page 32.
General relief, page 32. Okay. Should be staying the same there. General welfare. Whoops, no, I looked wrong. Sorry, that's administration.
I think
He's
he's
less.
yeah, he's a little bit less than that, sure. Mental health's a pass through. Yes, I'll talk to them, Shannon.
What's the $3,000?
That's substance abuse treatment, and we cut that down because nothing had been used. And I doubt there still will be, but you
Used a
know,
little bit there on the.
we talked to
sheriff
Sandy and
transport
she
line.
wanted some left in there.
So that,
That's not mental health funds, that's substance abuse.
That comes out of the general supplemental funds.
And that's all gonna change in a couple of years,
No.
because you know, the DH, Kelly Garcia spoke to us yesterday with the behavioral health focus. It's gonna include mental health and substance abuse under the same umbrella, so all that's gonna change. We don't know
oh, excuse me.
how. Where are we, direct administrative? This stuff's all. What is that, Shannon?
That's all the old salary lines from, that's the history from fiscal year 22 for
Yeah, well,
mental
it's
health.
zero.
If you turn to the next page 34, that's where it's budgeted and spent out of now.
Oh, for mental health. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
and their meeting is on the fourth, well, you
Yep,
know,
I'll
it's
be
on the
there.
14th. So then we'll have the new numbers for them.
All right, where are we?
Non-departmental.
I am down, well, that's interest. So I think we're just about done.
Yeah, those are just the bond payments and interest, and then your transfer to secondary roads.
Mhm.
Okay. So the bottom line's got 200, well, of course, we made some changes to this. It's pretty close to last year. Okay, anything else for now?
Well. I'm just looking at the 22-23 budget versus your projected budget, and we're
We took a little bit off.
1.4 million less.
Yeah. Wait a minute,
That's pretty significant.
where'd you get that?
That's probably,
Report total.
It's not hospital, right?
guess
Last
that's
page,
the
sorry.
ARPA money.
Okay,
I'm seeing 18 million.
yeah, but in 22-23, the total budget was 19.6, 19.6 million, so.
Oh, yeah, so it's less than 2 years ago. And, what,
And we're up.
200,000 more than last year, but we took a little bit off.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they're gonna do.
And we also added the ambulance in there, so. There. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Anything else for now? Otherwise, we'll adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Of course, it's a work session.
Go out now if you want me to.
You wanna, well, go ahead. Otherwise, I can. Okay, goodbye, everybody online. We're done. We're adjourning.
Hey, is there a place in town to buy donuts?